He threw away a broken umbrella. Hours later, an alien mother was using it to save her baby. Rain hit Narrated, 9 and hard, straight lines, the kind that made conversations short and movements precise. The upper transit level looked like a series of metal rivers under the storm lights, each walkway gleaming with flowing water, each gutter roaring as it swallowed the runoff from the tiers above. Tyler Deeren stepped out of the storm control annex and into the downpour without breaking stride. He felt drained. His eyes burned from hours staring at route projections and hazard maps, and his shoulders ached under the weight of his dark transit jacket. He paused under the shallow overhang, just long enough to check the time on his wristband. 20 minutes past the end of his scheduled shift. Another overtime block he had not argued about. Turning problems into straight lines calmed him more than going home early ever did. He walked out from the overhang and into the full force of the storm. Water hit his face in cold sheets. The walkway under his boots was slick, but his steps stayed steady. Years in the border forces had trained his body to move in bad weather without thinking about it. Narrow-cut uniform trousers tucked into worn boots. Jacket zipped to his throat. Collar up, head neither ducked nor lifted. He walked like a man who expected the world to be harsh and preferred knowing where the blows came from. He opened his umbrella with a practice flick. The canopy sprang out, fighting the wind for a few seconds, then settled into a rough balance as he angled it into the gusts. Most people avoided this stretch of the level during heavy rain. It ran along a long storm conduit and had fewer shops, fewer food stalls. It was a direct path home for him, and direct mattered more than comfort. His mind wandered back to the shift anyway. A delayed shuttle on line 3. A moment where a storm wall had pushed farther than forecast and flooded a lower ramp. His team had rerouted 3 trams and a freight hauler in under a minute. No one stranded. No one swept off the edges. The grid had held. That was the mission now. Keep people moving. Keep storms from turning into body counts. It was not a glamorous role, but it was clean and measurable, and it did not involve sending anyone into a situation he could not pull them back from. The wind hit stronger around the next bend. The umbrella jerked sideways. One of the ribs snapped with a sharp crack, then another. The fabric sagged, part of it folding in on itself. Cold water poured through the new gap and straight down his neck. He felt a flash of irritation. It was small, but sharp, a reminder that the world rarely cooperated with neat plans. Tyler stopped briefly at a trash bin near an almost empty transit shelter. The shelter roof spat out a continuous curtain of water. A single commuter sat hunched on the bench, hood up, eyes locked on the schedule screen. He folded the ruined umbrella with quick, hard movements and rammed it into the top of the overflowing bin. Broken plastic sticks and food containers shifted around it. He stood there for a second, rain soaking his hair flat, jacket darkening at the seams. The urge to kick the bin came and went. Pointless. He adjusted his collar and went on. He did not think about the umbrella again. By the time the control annex called him back for an extra 2 hours, the storm had moved into a heavier phase. Warning bands shifted from amber to a deeper orange on the central board. He stood with the team, adjusting route times, delaying non-critical freight, scanning for weak points in the grid. It was the kind of work that scraped the noise from his head and left only decisions. When he finally signed out for real, the room was quieter. Most of the faces had changed with the rotation. He left with the feeling that the system would hold for another few hours. That was enough. He stepped into the corridor again and felt the fatigue settle deeper. His legs were steady, but the joints in his hands ached when he flexed them. He wanted heat, dry clothes, and 10 minutes where nothing required his immediate attention. The outside door slid open. The storm greeted him. Rain poured harder now, thick enough that the nearest signs blurred at the edges. The storm lights shone harsher, reflecting off the water-slick walkway in bright streaks. The gutters along the edges roared like narrow, confined rivers. Tyler pulled his jacket tighter and walked. The route home was the same. Down the main path, past the closed noodle stall that still smelled faintly of broth and grilled meat, past the vending unit that sold sweetened Larn chips and hot frozen seed coffee when it was actually stocked, past the maintenance hatch with the crooked hazard tape. He moved by habit, counting turns and junctions without looking up at the signage. His mind drifted between the day's work and the layout of his empty apartment, already adjusting his mental list. Boots off on the rack, jacket hung, heater to mid-range, reheat leftover Kareth meat and grain, quick rinse bed. When he rounded the last bend toward the transit shelter, he slowed without meaning to. Something was different. The air felt wrong, not physically, but in the way the scene sat in his peripheral vision. He focused. The trash bin was no longer just a bin. There was someone beside it. The shape was small at first glance. A person kneeling on the flooded walkway, shoulders hunched, head bowed. For a heartbeat, he thought it might be someone who had slipped and not yet stood back up. He stepped closer. It was a woman, not human. Her skin had a soft purple tone that stood out even under the cold white storm lights. Rain beaded and ran along it in visible lines. Long white hair hung around her face and down her back. Wet strands stuck to her cheeks and jaw. She was thin, the angles of her shoulders sharp where they showed under his dark jacket. His jacket. She wore it loosely over something darker and far thinner. When she shifted, he saw torn strips of fabric crossing her chest and hips in a makeshift top and bottom, both soaked and clinging tight to her body. They looked like someone had cut up an old piece of clothing and tied it back together, just enough to keep her legally covered. Her bare knees were pressed against the metal floor. Water pooled around them, soaking her from below as the rain hit from above. Her feet were planted directly on the cold surface, toes pale and reddened. In her arms, held so close he could not see the full shape at first, was a baby wrapped in a faded cloth. The cloth had once had color, maybe pattern, now mostly washed out. The child shifted weakly, a soft sound like a broken breath escaping it. The woman held his broken umbrella over the baby. The sight hit him in one clean line. The familiar handle, the warped frame, the patch of torn fabric hanging at an angle. She had fished it out of the bin he had used earlier and was trying to angle the remains to block the worst of the rain from the child's face. She had positioned herself between the storm and the baby in another way too. Her body curved forward around the bundle, her back taking the full force of the weather, so the front of the cloth stayed a little drier. He felt his chest tighten. The emotion arrived before he had words for it. Guilt came right after. He had thrown the umbrella away without a second thought. For him, it was trash. For her, it was the only shield she could find. He slowed his steps and let his breathing steady. The old training clicked into place almost by reflex. Assess. Prioritize. Move. The woman's lips moved. She whispered to the baby in a language he did not recognize, soft and quick. Between those words, she used broken common. "Shh, little one. Stay warm. Stay small." Her voice was hoarse, probably from cold and from speaking for hours over the noise of the rain. A passerby in a thick hood brushed past Tyler, glanced once at the scene, then turned away fast. Two young workers in light jackets looked for longer, eyes lingering on the woman's legs and the thin fabric visible under his jacket. One of them smirked. They kept walking. No one stopped. Tyler felt anger rise under his exhaustion. It was not the hot, reckless anger he used to fight down in combat zones. It was a hard, quiet kind that sharpened his thoughts. He walked toward her, keeping his pace steady. "Ma'am," he said, voice low so it did not carry down the corridor. "You can't stay out here." She flinched at the sound, arms tightening around the baby. The umbrella dipped awkwardly. More rain hit the child's face. The baby whimpered louder. "Don't touch," she rasped. Her silver eyes jumped to his hands, then his face, then to the storm behind him. "No, take him." Her accent wrapped around the words, but the meaning was clear. Every muscle in her arms signaled the same thing. He stopped a full step back. He made sure his hands were visible and empty. "I'm not taking him," he said. "I see a mother trying to keep her child alive in a storm. You both need to get out of this weather." She watched him without blinking. Her eyes were bloodshot and ringed with darker shadows. He could see the fine tremor in her jaw. He needed to move this forward without spooking her. He chose simple facts. "It is colder now than when I left for shift," he said. You have bare feet in standing water. That baby is soaked. You know what happens if you stay." She knew. That was obvious. Her gaze slid briefly to the side, toward the shelter. The single commuter on the bench had pulled his hood lower and sunk deeper into his seat. He pretended to sleep. There were no spare jackets, no blankets, no open buildings nearby, only maintenance doors and closed shutters. She looked back at Tyler. "People pass," she said, voice flat. "Many hours. Look, then eyes away. You different." "I came back," he answered. "Not everyone does that." He shrugged out of his jacket's outer layer, leaving his uniform shirt exposed to the rain. The cold hit his shoulders at once, but he ignored it and held the jacket out toward her, grips loose, arms extended. "You put this on properly," he said. "It's designed for this weather." Then we walked to my place. It's not far. Heater, dry air, food. You hold the baby the entire time. I don't touch either of you unless you ask. She stared at the jacket like it might bite. "Why?" she asked. The question was fair. A man offering help at this hour on this level was not automatically safe. She knew that. He respected that she asked. He thought of several answers and picked the one that felt closest to the whole truth. "Because I used to be in the border forces," he said. "Too many times I arrived after something bad had already happened. Tonight, I'm here before. I can live with wet clothes. I can't live with walking past you." Her eyes flicked over him, taking in the posture, the steady tone, the way he stood just close enough to make the offer, but not close enough to trap her. "What name?" she said quietly. "You say name, then I decide." "Tyler Deeren," he said. "Storm Transit routing now. Block N, mid-tier. I walk this route every day." She repeated his name under her breath, testing the shape. Her shoulders shook with a slow shiver she could not fully hide. She shifted the umbrella under one arm, still trying to keep it over the baby's head as best she could. Then, very slowly, she extended one hand. Her fingers were wrinkled from being wet too long. Cold radiated from her skin. He laid the jacket over her shoulders carefully, letting the weight of it settle. The fabric looked huge on her, swallowing most of her upper body. He did not try to close it for her. That would have been too much. She pulled the front together with one hand, still clutching the baby with the other. "Name," she said, tapping her chest lightly with two fingers. "Sarala." He nodded once. The name lodged in his head quickly. "Can you stand?" he asked. She set her jaw and shifted her knees under her. When she tried to push herself up, her legs slid on the slick metal. Her bare foot skidded sideways. She nearly tipped, baby and all. Tyler stepped in, but he did not grab. He extended his forearm toward her, elbow bent, hand down, offering a brace. "Use me for balance," he said. "You still choose how close we are." She looked at his arm, then at the baby, then at his face. Her fear was obvious. Her need was stronger. She set her hand on his forearm. Her grip was light but desperate. He felt the tremor all the way through his muscles. He rose first, letting his own strength do most of the work, and guided her up until she stood. Once she was upright, he adjusted his stance so he did not crowd her. The baby cried again, a thin, exhausted sound. Sarala drew him closer, pressing his face under her chin. She kept the umbrella wedged awkwardly between her and Tyler's arm, like she could not afford to lose even that much cover. "Slow steps," Tyler said. "The floor is slick. I'll stay on your left. Rail is on your right. If you feel unsteady, hold the rail, not me." It leaves one hand free for him. She nodded once. They started walking. The storm seemed louder now that they were moving together. Every gust pushed at Sarala's bare legs, forcing her to adjust her weight while keeping the baby steady. The water on the walkway was cold enough that Tyler could feel it seeping through his boots. He did not want to imagine what it felt like directly on skin. As they passed a junction, a transport tech leaving the annex stopped and stared. His eyes ran over Sarala's bare calves, the glimpse of soaked dark fabric under the jacket, the baby cradled against her chest. His gaze then flicked to Tyler, to the soaked uniform, and something like understanding mixed with judgment crossed his face. "You picking up strays now, Deeren?" the tech called. Tyler did not break stride. "Watch your intake filters," he said back, voice even. "Storm's carrying more grit tonight." The tech muttered something under his breath and walked on. Sarala heard the tone, even if she didn't catch all the words. Her grip on the jacket tightened. "They think I am garbage," she said quietly. "Found next to bin. They are not wrong." "They are wrong," Tyler said. "You're not garbage. You were in the wrong place in a storm with a child. That is different." She didn't answer, but she lifted her head a fraction higher as they moved. They reached the housing block entrance. A sensor light above the door flicked from red to green as Tyler's band pinged the lock. The door slid open, letting out a breath of warm, dry air that smelled faintly of metal, cooking oil, and cleaning solution. Sarala hesitated on the threshold. Her body leaned toward the warmth. Her feet stayed planted on the wet metal. "What do you want from me?" she asked, still looking at the interior. "Right now," he said, "I want you and your baby not to die of exposure in my corridor." She turned to look at him properly for the first time. Up close, he saw the fine cracks in her lips, the reddened edges of her eyes, the way her hair stuck to the side of her neck. "If I enter," she said, "I owe you." He thought about how to answer that. Debt was a dangerous word in the lower levels. "You owe me this," he said. "You eat. You get warm. Then, when you can breathe properly again, you decide what you want to do next. Not me. That is enough." She studied him for one more long second. "Fine," she said, "but if you try to touch me while I sleep, I make noise loud enough whole block wakes." "Good," he said. "That will keep me honest." He stepped back, giving her space to choose. After a moment, she crossed the threshold. The corridor inside was bright compared to the storm level. Clean lines, painted floor markings, a row of doors with small number panels, a faint hum from the ventilation system. A middle-aged neighbor stepped out of one of the apartments with a container of cooked grain in hand. He saw Tyler. Then he saw Sarala in his jacket, bare legs, baby clutched to her chest, wet hair and exhausted eyes. His expression tightened. He said nothing. He moved sideways to give them room, but he pressed his back to the opposite wall to avoid brushing against Sarala as she passed. She felt the move as clearly as if he had spoken. She shrank inward again. Tyler felt the anger return. He slowed just enough to meet the neighbor's eyes and held the gaze for 2 beats. The man looked away first and hurried down the corridor. Tyler and Sarala reached his door. His band pinged the lock. The panel flashed green. The door slid open with a quiet hiss. His apartment was small but ordered. A narrow bed pushed against one wall. A compact cooking unit and a metal counter. A heater in the corner. A fold-out table with 2 chairs. A shallow wash stall with a frosted panel. Shelves with neatly stacked containers of Zyron grain, preserved Kareth meat, Varen root, and a row of cups and plates. It looked exactly like what it was, a space designed for one disciplined person who valued function and routine. Sarala stepped in slowly, eyes scanning every corner. Her breathing eased as the warm air hit her wet skin, but her shoulders stayed tight. "Door," she said. "Close." Tyler stepped in after her and let the door slide shut. The sounds of the storm muted at once to a distant vibration in the walls. He watched her for a moment. Her knees wobbled slightly now that the urgent need to move was gone. Her hands were stiff where they held the baby. "We start with heat," he said. "Sit on the bed. Keep him against you. I'll turn the heater up and get water boiling." She nodded once and moved toward the bed, each step careful. She sat slowly, as if one wrong movement might shatter the moment. The baby whimpered, then settled as she adjusted him. Tyler turned the heater dial higher. Warm air began to stir. He filled a small pot at the sink and set it on the cook unit. The burners glowed to life. He felt something settle in his chest. The night had split into a before and after, and he understood it clearly. Before, a long shift, a broken umbrella, an ordinary tired walk home. After, a wet woman in his bed, a child who needed more than the storm lines could ever provide, a choice he was not going to undo. He moved around the small space with the controlled efficiency that had once been used for tactical planning and now translated into civilian routines. Jacket off, boots unzipped and left on the mat. Band checked and silenced. Behind him, Sarala sat on the edge of the bed, his jacket hanging loosely from her shoulders, bare legs dangling. Her eyes followed his movements. "You live alone," she said. "Yes," he answered. "Easier for the job. I'm on call a lot. Less to explain that way." "You had other job before," she said. "You move like someone who expects walls to break." He glanced at her. There was more perception in that single sentence than most people showed in weeks. "Border forces," he said. "Coordination. I sent people into storms of a different kind. Now I send trams and buses instead. Less blood." She absorbed that, expression unreadable. "I walked up from lower tiers," she said, voice quieter. "Thought upper levels mean more help. More eyes that see. I was wrong. They did not see me. Only Storm." He looked at her bare feet, the reddened skin, the imprint of the metal pattern on her soles. She had climbed a lot of stairs like that. "What is your goal now?" he asked. "Tonight." She looked down at the baby, fingers brushing the small face through the thin cloth. "Keep him breathing," she said. "One more night. Then tomorrow I think again." He nodded. That was clear enough. He could work with that. He planned to guide her through the steps she needed to regain her independence, even if she did not fully understand them yet. That would take time. For tonight, the mission was simpler. "Then we start with that," he said. "Warm, dry fed. For both of you." Outside, the storm hammered the colony walls. Inside, a man who had once been trained to hold lines against chaos adjusted the heater and watched a woman who had crawled through those same storms sit in his bed with a child in her arms. For the first time in years, Tyler's mission expanded by choice rather than by order. Steam drifted from the pot on the cook unit, filling the small apartment with a mild warmth that softened the edge of the storm outside. The steady hum of the heater pushed back the cold, and the sound of rain hitting the exterior panels became a muffled backdrop instead of a threat. Sorala sat on the edge of the bed, holding the baby close. The cloth around the child was damp, but no longer dripping. Her eyes followed Tyler's movements with sharp attention. Not trust, but something close to cautious acceptance. He stirred the warming water, testing the temperature with the back of his knuckles. The unit hissed as he adjusted the heat. Her breathing steadied when she saw he was focused on the job and not trying to close the distance between them. "How long since he ate?" Tyler asked without turning. She hesitated. Before Storm hit upper tiers. "Hours." Her fingers shifted around the baby's back. "He slept too much. Not healthy sleep." He made a small nod. The fact she answered at all gave him a direction. He opened a vacuum-sealed pack of softened grain mash. It smelled faintly like cooked starch with a trace of sweet zyronberry. He stirred it into the warm water until the texture turned smooth enough for an infant. He brought the cup closer, stopping at her reach. "You feed him," he said. "Not me." Her shoulders eased a little. She adjusted the jacket closer around herself, positioned the baby higher, and dipped 2 fingers into the warm mixture. The infant latched weakly at first, then stronger. Sorala's breathing tightened as she watched him eat, relief visible in the slow lowering of her shoulders. Tyler stepped back to give her room. The wet strands of her hair clung to her shirt. Water dripped from the ends onto the floor. He paused beside the small closet, pulled out a folded towel, and set on the bed near her knee. "You could dry your hair," he said. "You'll get sick staying like that." She looked at the towel as if she wasn't sure she was allowed to take it. Then she reached for it with one free hand and pressed it lightly against her hair, squeezing out the water. The room settled into a quiet rhythm. The baby suckled. The pot clicked as the heat lowered. Wind rattled faintly against the outer panel. Tyler removed his soaked shirt and pulled on a dry, sleeveless one from the closet. His back showed old, thin-lined scars from past deployments. Sorala's eyes flicked to them, then away. "You fought?" she asked. "Coordinated more than fought," he said as he wrung out the wet fabric over the sink. "Storm rescues. Structural collapse responses. Hard places, wrong hours." "You stopped," she said. He hung the wet shirt on a hook near the heater. "Stepped out before I started making mistakes." He glanced at her. "This job keeps people alive without putting them in my hands." She nodded like that answer made sense. She shifted the baby again. "I walked up tier because they say upper level safer. Cleaner. But people their closed doors too fast." Her voice stayed even, but her grip on the baby tightened. "You ask why I am alone. Answer is simple. Everything I came with is gone. Tyler didn't ask more. She wasn't ready for details, and pushing would only drive her back behind that defensive tone. He handed her a second, softer cloth. Wrap him in this after he's done. It's warmer. She accepted it without hesitation this time, sliding it under the infant with careful hands. A shiver ran through her legs as she straightened. The cold had sunk deep. She adjusted the jacket, and the edge of her soaked makeshift clothing peeked out beneath it. "You can wash properly," Tyler said. "The stall has heat and clean water. I'll stay out here." Door locks from inside. She tensed, weighing the offer against her fear. "My place," he said quietly. "My rules are simple. You choose every touch, every step. I won't cross your line." Her throat tightened at that. It was subtle, but he saw it. She shifted the baby onto the bed, wrapped in a warmer cloth now, then looked toward the wash stall. The steam drifting from its frosted pane indicated the heater was already running. "If I go in," she said, "what you do out here?" "Cook," he answered. "Food with meat. You haven't eaten anything today that counted." She blinked, the faintest sign of surprise. "You have meat?" "Yes. And you're going to eat it." The conviction in his tone unsettled her, but not in a bad way. She stood slowly, legs stiff from cold and fatigue. The jacket slipped off one shoulder, exposing the dark, torn strap of her improvised top. She pulled the jacket tighter, not to hide her body from him, but from the lingering cold in the air. She lifted the baby once more, brushing her cheek against his forehead. "He sleeps now. No noise." "I'll be here," Tyler said. "He won't be alone." She handed the baby over more reluctantly than she intended to show, then immediately pulled her hand back, unsure. He supported the tiny body with practiced steadiness, seating the baby on the bed in a nest of the new cloth. Sorala studied the scene for 2 heartbeats, confirming the baby was safe, then walked toward the wash stall. Her steps were slow, almost silent. The door slid shut behind her, and the lock clicked. Inside the stall, water ran almost immediately. Not too loud, but enough to confirm she was using it. Tyler turned back to the cook unit. He pulled out a sealed tray of carrot meat, sliced thick and marinated lightly in Tyrian spice. When the pieces hit the hot pan, they sizzled, releasing a warm, earthy smell that filled the apartment. He added Zyron grain, letting it toast slightly before pouring in a small amount of broth. Simple but solid food. He glanced at the bed. The baby had settled, tiny breath steady. His hands moved with purpose, turning the meat, adjusting the flame, checking the grain texture. It grounded him more than he expected. Feeding 2 strangers in his apartment was not part of any plan, but he didn't resent it. It felt like a decision he should have made sooner. Minutes passed. Steam fogged the wash stall pane. Once, he heard the faint scrape of fabric being removed. Water hit the floor grate. No crying, no panic, just the quiet sound of someone finally washing away hours of cold and fear. He plated the food and set it on the fold-out table. A simple meal, but hot and heavy enough to settle in an empty stomach. The stall door opened quietly. Sorala stepped out wearing his dark shirt, oversized and hanging off one shoulder, barely reaching mid-thigh. Her hair, brushed back by her fingers, fell straight and damp down her back. She kept one hand on the shirt's hem, not to hide her body, but to anchor herself in the unfamiliar safety of the space. Tyler didn't stare. He acknowledged her with a single nod. "You're warmer," he said. "A little," she admitted. She crossed the room cautiously and checked the baby. The sight of the child sleeping calmly softened her tension more than any heat or meal could. Tyler motioned to the table. "Sit. Eat while it's hot." Sorala hesitated, then sat. The smell of the food hit her, and her posture loosened. She picked up a piece of meat, studied it, then took a slow bite. Her eyes closed briefly, not for pleasure, but for relief. "Good?" he asked. She swallowed. "Real food, not scraps. You'll have more tomorrow." She paused mid-bite, surprised again but didn't question it. The hunger won. While she ate, Tyler adjusted the heater and checked the corridor's panel for any store advisories. Nothing urgent. Not tonight. Sorala watched him between bites. Her voice was quieter now. "Why you live alone? You look like someone who had people once." I did, he said. Different place. Different weather. He kept his tone even. Life went one direction. I went another. She accepted that. She didn't ask for more. And you? He asked. Where were you before lower tears? She looked down at her plate. Farther than you think. I left because staying meant losing him. She brushed the baby's cheek. Everything else fell apart after that. Tyler didn't press. The pieces would come when they came. She ate until the plate was nearly clean. When she set it down, her shoulders finally relaxed. The storm still battered the colony walls, but inside the small room, the noise no longer reached her. Tyler lifted the empty plate and set it in the sink. You can sleep there, he said, nodding toward the bed. I'll take the floor. She tightened her grip on the shirt's hem. If I sleep, and you, I won't, he said plainly. If I so much as shift wrong, you can throw something at my head. She let out the smallest breath that almost resembled a laugh. Almost. She picked up the baby, settled him against her chest, and slid under the blanket. She stayed half sitting instead of lying fully down, watching Tyler roll a folded mat onto the floor. You helping me is strange, she murmured. Maybe, he said, but you needed help and I was there. Sorala's eyes stayed on him. Tomorrow you still help? He met her gaze with a steady look. Yes, tomorrow, and after that, until you tell me you've got the rest handled. Her breathing slowed, finally allowing exhaustion to take over. Outside, the storm raged. Inside, the room settled into quiet. Tyler lay on a mat, eyes open, ears tuned to every small sound in the apartment. Sorala, holding her baby close, drifted into the first safe sleep she'd had in days. The storm eased by morning, leaving the outer panels vibrating under a softer drizzle. Tyler woke before the lights auto-shifted to daytime mode. His back felt stiff on the mat, but his mind was clear. The room was dim except for the muted glow from the heater. Sorala sat exactly where she'd fallen asleep, half upright against the wall, the baby resting on her chest. She hadn't moved much through the night. Likely out of fear, she'd lose control of the space if she let herself sleep too deeply. Her eyes opened the moment he pushed himself up from the floor. Alert, guarded, but not panicked. She checked that the baby still breathed, then looked at him with a faint edge of uncertainty. You didn't move, she said. I stayed where I said I'd stay. She relaxed, only a fraction. Good. He stood and stretched. His muscles pulled tight across his back, and one of the old scars tugged with the movement. Sorala noticed. She watched him with quiet assessment, her gaze steady rather than apologetic. You said you help soldiers, she said. Your body shows part of that. He didn't respond right away. He pulled on a dry shirt, then checked the heating tray where he'd put aside leftover meat and grain before sleeping. The food had cooled into a solid mass that warmed quickly when he slid it into the cook unit. Part of the job, he finally said. Storms don't wait for the safe option. She nodded, understanding that in her own way. Weather does not care who you are, she said quietly. Storm or people. The baby stirred, making a small clicking sound. Hunger. Sorala instinctively rocked him, the motion practiced despite exhaustion. Tyler filled a shallow bowl with the warm mash, stepped back so she could feed him without feeling watched, and set it near her knee. She dipped her fingers into it immediately. Thank you, she said before she could stop herself. You don't owe thanks for feeding your child, he replied. Her expression tightened, not in anger but in recognition. Something about the way he spoke cut through her defenses faster than if he'd tried to console her. When the baby finished, she wiped his mouth with a corner of the cloth and looked around the apartment again, more thoroughly this time. The heater humming low, the stack of dry towels, the unrolled mat, the small pouch of identification cards on Tyler's shelf. You live simple, she said. Easier that way. Fewer things to trip over in the dark. She gave him a brief, almost reluctant glance, as if she understood more about that statement than he intended to share. He plated a portion of the reheated meat and grain for her, adding a little fresh broth to soften its edges. When he set on the table, he said, "Eat before we go out." She blinked. Out. You need clothes. Things that fit. A wrap for warmth. Anything is better than scraps and my shirt. Her fingers tightened on the hem of the shirt she wore. She looked down at her bare thighs, then at the sleeping baby, then at the door. "People stare," she said. "They stared last night," he replied. "They'll stare again. But you won't be alone." She studied him. Not his stance, his intent. "Why do you walk with me?" she asked. "Not just shelter. You plan more." He didn't deny it. "I want you to manage without freezing or starving. That means I walk with you until you can do that on your own." Her eyes softened, not trusting, but quietly absorbing the offer. She began eating. The sound of utensils against the plate broke the silence. The meat released a warm scent of Tyrian spice when she cut into it. The grain had softened perfectly. She ate slowly at first, then faster when she realized her body needed more than she expected. "You eat too?" she asked between bites. "I will later." "You should eat," she said without looking up. "You look like you forget yourself." He didn't argue. He sat at the table across from her, pulled the second portion toward himself, and ate with a steady pace. The domestic normalcy struck them both at the same time. She paused, fork half lifted. He didn't comment. After the meal, he cleaned the plates while she adjusted the baby's cloth wrap into a secure sling across her chest. She tied it with quick, practiced knots, showing she had been doing this for weeks. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Market level," he said. "Early hours are better. Fewer crowds." Better for what? For avoiding trouble. She didn't press, but she understood. Before opening the door, he reached into the small storage drawer near the frame. He pulled out a narrow, dark shawl, one he usually kept for guests during winter drafts. He handed it to her. "Wrap it over your shoulders," he said. "It'll keep you warm, and the less people see your condition, the less they talk." She hesitated. Then she draped it over herself and tied the ends behind her back, covering the most exposed parts of her shoulders and chest while still wearing his oversized shirt beneath it. She checked the baby again, then nodded once. He unlocked the door. The corridor was brighter now, but the scent of wet metal still hung in the air. A few neighbors passed by, heading down toward the elevator shaft. Their eyes slid toward Sarala, her bare legs, her wrapped baby, her damp hair, but their expressions stayed guarded, almost embarrassed. No one spoke. Tyler's steps stayed even. They reached the lift and descended 2 levels until the walkway opened into the market tier. Early morning vendors were setting out their goods. Steam rose from a broth stand where strips of meat simmered in metal pots. A booth selling grain cakes laid out crisp squares of toasted Zyron batter. Lanterns flickered above rows of fabric wraps, belts, shawls, and second-hand clothing. Sarala's breath hitched. Not fear, overwhelm. It was the first place she'd seen in days where people actually traded instead of stepping over her. As they entered the aisle, a vendor behind a grilled meat counter lifted his head. His eyes tracked the way Tyler walked beside her. His expression twitched. "New girlfriend, Darren?" he said with a smirk. Tyler didn't break stride. "Make sure your counter's clean. Last time your meat tasted like it hit the floor." The vendor shut his mouth and looked away. Sarala blinked. "You know him?" "No," Tyler said. "But people talk less when they think you can make their life difficult." They reached a fabric stall. A woman with graying hair glanced at Sarala, then at the baby, then at Tyler with a long, measuring stare. "What do you need?" the vendor asked. "Warm wrap skirt," Tyler said. "Light belt. Undershift if you have one." Sarala opened her mouth to object, but the vendor was already pulling pieces from her racks. A violet-toned wrap skirt with subtle metallic thread, a charcoal undershift, a soft belt made from woven synthetic fiber. "These fit her," the vendor said. Sarala stepped closer and touched the fabric. Her fingers hesitated over the skirt. "This is mine," she asked softly. "If you want it," Tyler said. She swallowed hard. "Yes." She carried the clothes into the stall's changing alcove. When she emerged minutes later, she looked different in a way that wasn't visual alone. The wrap skirt hung smoothly around her hips, the slit allowing easy movement. The undershift rested under the shirt, adding stability and warmth. The belt drew the outfit together without hiding her shape. She looked less like someone who had been rescued from a storm and more like someone who belonged somewhere. Tyler nodded once. "Good." A faint warmth touched her face, something close to embarrassment, but edged with pride. They paid. The vendor bagged the old torn scraps without comment, relieved to be rid of them. As they left the stall, Sarala walked a little straighter, still close to him, but not clinging. They moved deeper into the market. She slowed when she passed a booth selling grilled Kareth meat skewers. The smell stopped her mid-step. She didn't reach for anything. She looked instead at the baby, checking if he stirred, then at Tyler. He picked up a skewer, handed over the credit chip, and gave it to her. "Eat while we walk," he said. Her lips parted slightly. "You keep feeding me. You keep needing it," he replied. She took a bite, the warm juices running down her fingers. Her eyes closed briefly, the flavor hitting her harder than she expected. They continued through the market, and for the first time since he found her in the rain, she looked up instead of down. Tyler watched her quietly. She was exhausted, hungry, wary, but she was still standing, still moving forward. He planned to guide her through each step she needed until she could walk these levels alone with her child held high and her head steady. And judging by the way she walked beside him now, not behind him, not pressed in the shadows, she was beginning to believe that was possible. The morning rush thickened as Tyler and Sarala walked deeper into the market. Vendors opened metal shutters, steam lifted from cooking pots, and the hum of voices rose from every direction. The walkway's wet panels reflected the stall lights with sharp, clean edges. Sarala kept the baby secured against her chest, adjusting the wrap belt with practiced motions, the violet skirt shifting with each careful step. Tyler watched how she scanned the crowd, not with panic now, but with calculation. She measured the distance between people, the gaps in the flow of foot traffic, the places where someone might brush too close. It told him she was used to staying unnoticed, used to avoiding trouble before it reached her. A question formed naturally. "How long have you been on your own?" he asked as they passed a stall selling dried fruits and pressed meat sheets. She answered without looking at him. "Since lower tier collapse. Weeks, maybe more." "Alone that long?" he said. "Alone with him," she corrected gently, shifting the baby higher. "People let a woman starve. They do not let a baby cry. They complain. They push. They tell me to move." Her jaw tightened. He didn't interrupt. She added, "I came up tier because someone told me upper levels have shelters. They did. But rules changed. No ID, no stay. No stay, no warmth." Tyler understood. Regulations tightened every season, and undocumented residents suffered the worst of it. He kept his voice steady. "You're here now. I'll figure the rest out with you." She didn't thank him, but her shoulders loosened. They reached a small vendor booth selling children's items, cloth wraps, bottle kits, small blankets, and simple nutrient packs. The woman behind the counter looked older, with short gray-black hair and steady eyes. She took in Sarala's wrapped baby and the uneasy tilt in her posture. "You two need something specific?" the vendor asked. Sarala hesitated. Tyler stepped forward. "He needs a proper feeding bottle," he said, "and she needs something easier to carry him in. The cloth she is won't last." The vendor nodded and reached for a compact wrap sling with adjustable straps. "This one fits most body types," she said. "Even distribution. Keeps the child close so your arms get a break." Sarala touched the fabric cautiously. "Soft," she murmured. "Strong, too," the vendor replied. Storm-tested. Tyler paid before Sarala could protest. The vendor helped her thread the sling around her torso, adjusting the straps until the baby rested securely. Sarala's hands trembled slightly as she settled them into it. "He feels lighter," she said quietly. "Because now the weight is where it should be," the vendor answered. Sarala nodded once in thanks. As they left the stall, a group of younger workers walked past. One of them glanced at Sarala and whispered loudly enough to be heard, "Storm Trash finds a sponsor." Sarala froze. The muscles in her arms locked. Her breathing sped up. The baby twitched, reacting to the sudden tension. Tyler stepped between her and the group so fast they halted. His voice stayed low, controlled. "Say something like that again," he told them, "and you can explain it to transit security. She's with me." The workers paled and moved on without a word. Sarala didn't move at first. Her fingers curled against the wrap belt, knuckles white. "You're safe," Tyler said, turning back toward her. They won't try anything. They already did, she whispered. Words hurt more than hands sometimes. He didn't deny it. Instead, he adjusted the sling strap on her shoulder, checking its tension. She didn't pull away. They continued walking, and the noise of the market eventually faded behind them. The walkway opened onto a quieter side corridor lined with hydroponic planters and dim lanterns. Water dripped rhythmically from irrigation tubes, creating a steady pattern against the floor grates. Sorala slowed her steps. She touched the leaves of a wide, green plant. My people grew these, she said. Back home. Before, everything fell apart. Your world had storms like this? He asked. Worse, she said. Wind cut through the hills. Rain came sideways, but we were taught how to survive it. I never thought I would fail at something as simple as keeping him dry. You didn't fail, Tyler said. You were alone and outnumbered by weather and people who looked away. She traced a fingertip along the plant's stem. He survived only because I kept walking. Then you found us. Why you, not someone else? Because I came back through that corridor, he said. Wrong place, right moment. That's how most things start. She considered that, her eyes drifting to the baby's sleeping face. If I hadn't picked up your broken umbrella, you wouldn't have stopped. I would have, he replied. You were on your knees in a storm, holding a child. That's enough. A faint, uncertain breath escaped her, somewhere between relief and disbelief. They reached an automated kiosk selling warm drinks. Tyler ordered 2 cups of lightly spiced broth, one for himself, one for her. She cupped hers between her palms, letting the heat sink into her hands. The first sip made her eyes close briefly. Burns, she said, but in a good way. Means circulation's coming back, he said. You were colder than you realized. They sat on a low bench near the planters. The walkway here was quiet except for the hum of lights and the faint rattle of pipes. Sorala shifted the baby gently. I still have nowhere to go, she said. No pleading, just truth. Shelters won't take me. No credits, no ID, and no one hires a woman who looks like. You can stay at my place for now, Tyler said before she finished. Not permanently, just until we stabilize things. We'll get you registered under storm relief. It's slow but possible. She stared at him, speechless for several seconds. You offer too much, she finally said. Not too much, he answered. Just enough. She lowered her gaze, gripping the warm cup. I don't understand you. You don't need to. You just need to walk the steps with me. She took another sip, her hands steadier this time. A small question slipped out of her. And if I fail those steps, then I'll help you try again. She looked up sharply, as if expecting him to retract the words. He didn't. The baby made a small sound and nestled deeper into the sling. Sorala exhaled slowly. Then I will try. Tyler nodded. He stood and offered his hand, not to take hers, but to help her rise if she chose it. After a moment, she placed her hand lightly in his and stood. They began to walk back toward his housing block, the noise of the market fading behind them, her steps more aligned with his than before. Not beside him out of fear, beside him because, for the first time, she believed she might actually reach something other than another storm. They reached the upper walkways just as the lights transitioned to midday brightness. Panels overhead shifted from a pale gray to a clean white hue, imitating sunlight. The corridor warmed slightly, enough for Sorala to loosen her grip on the shawl draped across her shoulders. Her new skirt moved with each step, brushing lightly against her legs. The sling held the baby snug to her chest, his breathing soft and steady. Tyler kept a calm pace beside her. He wasn't hovering, but he stayed close enough that she never had to scan for him. The steady rhythm of his boots on the metal walkway matched the slower, more deliberate cadence of her steps. She broke the silence first. You did not ask why I came to the colony, she said. Most humans ask that too quickly. You'll tell me when you're ready, he replied. She considered that for a moment. I came because I thought there would be work. Something simple. Cleaning. Carrying. Anything. Her voice was steady, but her fingers tightened on the sling strap. My home region collapsed. No crops. No water. People left in groups. Some came here and said the upper tiers were safer. Upper tiers are safer for people with documents, Tyler said. I learned that too late. They reached the landing platform where a line of utility drones hummed past overhead, carrying crates between storage shafts. Sorella watched them with faint tension in her shoulders, though none flew close to her. She had learned to fear machines that could replace her, reject her, or force her out of shelters. Tyler noticed. "These don't scan people," he said as one passed. "Just crates." She nodded, but the stiffness didn't fully leave her posture. When they stepped into the next corridor, the air changed, warmer, with the faint scent of cooked grains drifting from the communal kitchens 2 floors down. As they turned a corner toward his building, Sorella asked, "Why do you live alone? You have a good job. You could have a family." "Life didn't go that direction," he said. "No one waiting for me. No one I needed to follow." Her eyes moved to the scars on his arm, barely visible beneath the rolled fabric of his sleeve. "You left your team?" she asked. "They left in different ways," he answered quietly. "Transfers, accidents, distance. People go where they're needed." "And you weren't needed anymore?" she asked, not unkindly. "I'm needed somewhere else now," he said simply. Sorella looked down at the baby. Her fingers drifted over the sling, smoothing the fabric. Inside the building, the air was noticeably warmer. A couple of residents from another floor passed by, giving neutral nods. No stares this time. No comments. Sorella held her breath anyway until the corridor quieted again. Tyler keyed, opened the door to his unit. The heater hummed softly. The towels he'd laid out earlier were dry now. She stepped inside slowly, as if confirming the space was truly hers to enter. The baby shifted against her chest, sensing the change in temperature. Tyler slipped off his jacket and hung it on the hook by the door. "Sit," he said gently. "You've walked enough for one day." She moved to the table and eased into a chair. Her new skirt settled around her legs, still clean despite the crowded walkways. She touched the fabric, pressing it between her fingers as if reminding herself it was truly hers. He prepared food, grain porridge softened with broth and a bit of crushed spice. The scent filled the small kitchen, warm and earthy. He set a bowl in front of her. "You can eat first," he said. "You need it more than I do." "You keep saying that," she replied softly. "Because it's true." She ate, slow but steady. The food's warmth made a visible difference. Her shoulders lowered, her hands relaxed. When she finished, she looked at him for a long moment. "You do not ask for anything in return," she said. "I don't need anything from you. Most people who help want something. I'm not most people." She studied his face, searching for any sign of dishonesty. She found none. That troubled her more than if he'd lied. The baby stirred and let out a soft cry. She lifted him from the sling and cradled him gently. The tiny sound broke the stillness of the room. Tyler moved to the storage drawer, pulling out the new feeding bottle from the market. "Want to try it?" he asked. She examined the bottle, turning it in her hands. "I used something like this once before the shelters turned us away. It'll make feeding easier," he said, "especially at night." She nodded. "Thank you." She filled the bottle with warm broth and held it to the baby's lips. He latched immediately. Her posture softened. Her expression changed too. Tension loosened, exhaustion pushed to the edges. She watched her child drink, as if absorbing strength from the moment. Tyler stood a few steps away, giving her space. "You can stay here for a while," he said. "Not forever, just long enough to get stable." She didn't respond right away. She gently rocked the baby, eyes fixed on him. Finally, she said, "I don't want to cause trouble for you." "You won't. You don't know what follows me." "If anything follows you," he said, "we'll deal with it." She looked up sharply. "There's one thing you should know," she said. He waited steady. "My child's father is not alive," she said. "No one is searching for us. But some shelters turned me away because they thought I had nothing to offer." "You don't owe them anything," Tyler said. "But I owe him," she said, nodding at the baby. "He deserves a place that is warm. You'll give him that." "With your help," she added quietly. He met her gaze. "For now, yes. Until you can do it yourself." She absorbed his words carefully, as if testing their weight. Tyler moved to the side wall and cleared space. He pulled out a second sleeping mat, thicker than the emergency one he used last night. He laid it near the heater. "This is yours," he said. "You and the baby. Take it." Her breath hitched, almost imperceptibly. She looked at the mat, then at him. "I haven't had a place of my own since the collapse," she whispered. "It's not permanent," he said, "but it's real." She lowered the sleeping baby onto the mat, adjusting the wraps around him. The small, steady rise and fall of his chest filled the warm, quiet space. Sorala sat beside him and slowly lay down too, her back sinking into the soft surface. She exhaled deeply, eyes half closing, her first real release of tension since he met her. Tyler stepped back, giving her silence. "You can rest," he said. "You're safe here." Her eyes opened just enough to meet his. "I believe you," she said. Then, for the first time, she allowed herself to sleep before fear could stop her. The room stayed quiet long into the afternoon. The heater gave off a steady warmth that softened the edges of the cold metal floor. Sorala slept deeply, her breathing even, her arm curled protectively around the baby. Tyler worked in silence at the small counter, sorting meal packs and reorganizing the limited supplies he had. Every so often, he checked on her, not hovering, just making sure she rested without interruption. When she finally stirred, it was slow and groggy, like waking after days of exhaustion. She blinked at the ceiling, then turned her head toward the baby. He slept soundly beside her. Her shoulders dropped, relieved. Tyler stepped closer. "You slept longer than I expected," he said. She pushed herself up, one hand braced on the mat. Her hair fell forward over one shoulder in long, tangled white strands. The new undershift hugged her torso, the wrapped skirt resting loosely around her hips after hours of lying down. "How long?" she asked. "For hours." Her eyes widened. "I didn't mean to." "You needed it," he said, cutting her off gently. "That's why you slept." She looked around the room, grounding herself. She touched her own cheek, surprised at how warm it felt. The trembling she'd carried since the storm was mostly gone. She stood carefully, checking the baby once more before stepping away from the mat. Her bare feet touched the floor, and she flinched slightly at the cool metal. Tyler noticed and tossed her a pair of thick socks from his drawer. "Were those?" he said. She caught them clumsily. "They're big. Fold the heel." She put them on. They hung loose around her ankles, but they softened the cold. She walked to the table, rubbing her arms lightly. "I should help with something," she said. "Clean. Cook. Anything." "You don't need to do anything yet," he replied. Her jaw tightened with conflict. She wasn't used to having nothing demanded of her. She wasn't used to being told to rest twice in one day. She moved toward the counter anyway, determined to be useful. When she reached out to pick up a bowl, her hand brushed the back of his. She froze. He did too. Her breath caught. Not fear this time, but something sharper, warmer, unfamiliar after weeks of retreating from contact. His hand was rough from labor, warm from work. Hers was small, still a bit cold from sleep. Neither moved for a moment. She pulled back first, fingers curling against her palm. "I didn't mean." "It's fine," he said. "You're not in my way." She swallowed and tried to steady herself. She reached again, slower this time, picking up the bowl and setting it aside neatly. She worked beside him, close enough that their arms brushed once more when they reached across the counter. She didn't flinch this time. Not because she wasn't tense, but because tension wasn't the same as fear. "You're shaking," he said quietly. "Because I'm trying to understand you," she admitted. "Humans avoid my people. They don't stand close like this." "I'm not avoiding you," he said. She lifted her chin. "Yes, I see that." Her voice had changed, softer, lower, with a careful curiosity edging into it. She took a breath and stepped closer, as if trying to read what he wasn't saying directly. "You walked with me through the market," she said. "You stood in front of those people. You gave my son a place to sleep. Now you let me stand here with you like I belong." "You're here," he said. "That's enough for now." She studied him, her gaze unmoving. The new sling crossed her torso diagonally, the fabric pulling gently against her waist and shoulder. Her posture was no longer defensive. It was attentive, almost open. She touched the edge of his sleeve. A small gesture, testing permission. He didn't step back. The air shifted between them. Her fingers drifted slightly higher, brushing the faint scar on his forearm. "You helped your team once," she said. "Now you help me." "Why?" "Because you needed someone," he said. "And I was there. Do you regret that?" "No." She lowered her hand, but not completely. Her fingers rested against the counter, close to his. Her voice was quiet, stripped of anything unnecessary. "I haven't felt safe beside someone in a long time." "You're safe beside me," he said. "Not just safe," she whispered. "Seen." Her words landed heavier than she intended. She felt the warmth rise under her skin. She turned away too quickly, pretending to inspect a jar on the counter. Tyler stepped closer, not touching her, but close enough that she felt his presence at her back. His voice was steady. "You don't have to hide when something matters to you." She exhaled slowly. "If I stop hiding, I might feel too much." "That's not wrong." She turned halfway toward him, her body angled between retreat and approach. Her eyes searched his face, trying to decide if she was still a burden or something closer to a person again. "Can I stand here?" she asked quietly. "This close." "If you want to," he said. She stepped closer by a single, deliberate inch. The warmth from his body met the faded chill clinging to her skin. Her cheeks flushed. Her breathing shifted, shallow but controlled. Her shoulder brushed as lightly, then stayed there, not by accident. He didn't touch her back, but he didn't move away either. Her voice dropped. "I don't understand this feeling." "You don't need to understand it today. What if it makes me depend on you too much? Then I'll guide you through that too." Her lips parted slightly, a quiet breath escaping. She nodded once, small, vulnerable, deliberate. For the first time since she entered his home, her body leaned toward his without collapsing into him. A choice, not desperation. A beginning, not fear. The baby stirred softly in the sling, reminding her to breathe. She placed a steadying hand on her child, then looked back up at Tyler. "I'm still learning how to stand," she said. "But right now, standing close to you feels right." He met her gaze. "Then stay right here." She did. Sorella stayed beside him through the rest of the afternoon, her shoulder touching his whenever she shifted her weight. The closeness felt strange to her, but not wrong. She kept checking the sling, making sure the baby slept comfortably, but her attention drifted back to Tyler again and again, as if she needed to confirm he was real and not another moment that would vanish when she blinked. Tyler finished preparing a meal on the small stovetop, thin-cut meat strips seared with varan root slices, steam rising in sharp, savory waves. He plated everything with a deliberate calm. Sorella watched his hands move, steady and confident, and something in her chest tightened. She touched her sternum lightly, unsure why her heartbeat felt heavier than usual. "Sit," he said. "You need a real meal." She adjusted the sling and took a seat at the table. The oversized shirt she'd slept in earlier was gone. She now wore the fitted undershift and wrap skirt she'd chosen with him in the market. When she sat, the skirt slipped along her thigh, revealing more skin than she meant to. She pulled it back into place. Tyler noticed the movement, but didn't comment. He only set her plate down and took a seat across from her. The first bite eased something tight in her stomach. She closed her eyes briefly as the warmth spread through her chest and arms. She'd eaten scraps for months. This was the first real food she'd tasted in longer than she wanted to admit. "You're shaking again," Tyler said. She opened her eyes. "It's good. Too good. My body isn't used to it." He took a slow sip from his cup. "You'll adjust." She lifted another slice of meat, slower this time, savoring the texture. Tyler watched her without staring, but she felt the weight of his attention anyway. "You said earlier," she began, unsure if she should continue. "You said I didn't need to hide." "You don't. It scares me." "I know." He leaned forward slightly, forearms on the table. Letting someone close always does. She held his gaze for several seconds, longer than she had dared to look at anyone before. "And if I get close to you, Tyler, what do you do with that?" "Treat it like it matters." Her breath caught. She set the fork down, hands steady but tense. "Why?" she asked. "Because you matter," he said. Her fingers curled against the plate's rim. For a moment, she couldn't look at him. Heat climbed up her throat, unfamiliar and overwhelming. She tightened the sling around her shoulder, grounding herself with the feel of her child's small body. When she finally looked back up, Her voice dropped into something quieter but clearer. You keep choosing me, even in front of others, even when it makes people stare. I don't care about them, he said, but I'm worthy of being chosen, he said before she could finish. Start there. Her chest rose and fell with a slow, uneven breath. I don't know how. I'll help you learn. He said it simply, without hesitation or expectation. The confidence in his voice steadied her more than the walls around them. She took another bite, then another. The meal grounded her, steadied her thoughts, but it also deepened the warmth spreading through her chest. She hadn't felt this safe or this seen in years. When they finished eating, Tyler stood and cleaned the table. Sarala tried to stand and help, but he put a firm hand on her shoulder, guiding her gently back into the chair. Rest, he said. She looked up at him, eyes narrowing slightly. You keep saying that. You keep needing it. She huffed quietly through her nose. You're stubborn. So are you. A faint smile touched her lips. He finished washing the dishes quickly, then walked to the heater. The rain's getting worse, he said. You should stay away from the balcony for tonight. Afraid I'll freeze again, she teased. He looked over at her. Afraid you'll push yourself too hard. She lowered her eyes, absorbing the care in his tone. When he returned to the center of the room, Sarala stood. The baby slept soundly in the sling, head resting against her chest. She met Tyler halfway, stopping only a breath away from him. She placed her hand lightly against his chest, over the fabric of his undershirt. His warmth spread through her palm immediately. You're not just helping me, she said. I want to be sure of that. You think I do this for nothing, he asked. I think you hide things, she whispered. So do you. Her hand slid slightly, fingers curling into the fabric. She tilted her chin up so she could look him directly in the eyes. Tell me something honest, she said. Not polite, not careful, honest. He didn't step back. He didn't hesitate. I want you, he said. Not out of pity, not because you needed a place to stay. I want you because you walk into a room and it feels different, because you fight to stand even when you're exhausted, because you look at me like I'm more than a man who lives alone. Her lips parted, breath catching. She tightened her grip on his shirt. I feel something when you look at me, something I haven't felt in years, and that scares me more than the storm. You're not alone in it, he said. Her pulse raced. She could feel it in her neck, in her wrist, in the way her knees weakened slightly. She stepped closer until her body brushed his. The heat between them rose instantly. Then show me what you mean, she whispered. But let me choose how close I come. You choose the pace, he said. She nodded once, slow and deliberate. She reached up, slid her free hand behind his neck, and pulled him down into a kiss. It wasn't soft. It wasn't timid. It was a long-held tension breaking open, pressed lips, uneven breaths, her body rising on her toes to meet his height. He steadied her waist with one hand, careful of the baby, while her fingers tightened behind his neck. When she finally broke the kiss, her breath shook. I want more, she said, but not tonight. He nodded. Tomorrow, or the day after, whenever you're ready. She rested her forehead against his chest. Thank you. He slid his hand gently along her back, not pulling her closer, just holding her in the space she'd chosen. She stayed there for a long moment, breathing his warmth, steadying her heart. When she looked up again, her voice was softer. Sleep beside me tonight. Not for anything more. Just stay close. I can do that, he said. She took his hand, and for the first time since she arrived, she didn't feel like a guest. She felt claimed because she claimed him back. Tyler followed her toward the bed without speaking, letting her set the pace. Sarala loosened the sling with slow movements so the baby wouldn't wake. She stroked the infant's cheek once, brushing away a faint line of moisture near the eye, then laid him gently in the padded crate Tyler had turned into a sleeping nest. The soft blanket shifted as the child curled inward, breathing evenly. She lingered there, one hand resting on the wooden rim, as if making sure he was truly safe. Tyler watched her from a step behind. The dim heater light cast a warm outline along her shoulders and down the length of her legs. After several seconds, she straightened and faced him. Stay close, she said. He nodded. She climbed onto the bed first, adjusting the skirt so it didn't catch, then pulled the thin blanket back for him. He slipped onto the mattress beside her, leaving enough space that she could decide how close to be. She slowly shifted toward him until her thigh brushed his. Her breath tightened at the contact, but she didn't move back. The storm outside thickened, rain hitting the metal panels with a steady drumbeat. A faint vibration ran through the housing frame every time the wind pressed against the outer plates. She stared at the ceiling, eyes following the faint movement of the heater's glow reflected across the metal ribs. "Tyler," she said, voice low, "when I kissed you earlier, did it change anything in your mind?" "About me?" "It confirmed what I already knew," he answered. "And what's that?" "That I'm not helping you out of duty anymore." Her breath trembled. She turned onto her side, facing him fully. "Then what are you doing?" He slid his hand toward hers, letting his fingers touch the back of her knuckles lightly before closing around her hand. "Choosing you. Not because you need shelter. Because you asked me to stay, and I wanted to." She studied his face in a low light, his jawline, the faint tiredness beneath his eyes, the way he breathed through his nose when thinking. She felt a solid calm from him, a steadiness she didn't know how to name but understood in her bones. "I keep wondering if I'm making your life harder," she said. "If people staring at me, talking about me, is a weight you don't deserve." "I can handle stares," he said. "What I can't handle is watching you shrink because of them." Her throat tightened, a small ache forming there. She shifted closer until her forehead touched his chin. His arm wrapped around her waist, slow and careful, resting against the fabric of her skirt. She exhaled against him, letting her body relax for the first time that night. Minutes passed in silence. Then she spoke again, her voice almost level, but carrying an undercurrent of uncertainty. "Do you think I'm strong enough to build a real home here? Not just hide in a room, but live." "You already are," he said. "You walked through a market where people stared at you. You held your ground at a clinic. You stepped into this room and told me what you wanted. That's living." Her eyes stung briefly, but she didn't look away. "And what do you want from this?" "From me," he answered without hesitation. "A future we both choose." She swallowed, feeling heat gather low in her abdomen. A small jolt of nervous energy spread through her fingers, so she intertwined her hand with his to steady herself. "I keep feeling sick in the mornings," she said quietly. "I thought it was stress, but it hasn't gone away." Tyler opened his eyes fully, focusing on her. He didn't look startled, just attentive. "When did it start?" he asked. 3 days ago, maybe 4. Her gaze lowered briefly to her stomach. "My cycle's late. Very late." He lifted his hand, brushing his thumb along her cheek. "Do you think?" "I think there might be another child," she said. "Yours. Mine. Ours." A long exhale left his chest, slow and steady. He shifted closer, sliding his hand to rest just above her hip. "Are you afraid?" "Yes," she whispered. "And hopeful. Both make sense." She pressed her forehead against his again. "If it's real, I don't want to raise a child half-hidden or ashamed of how we began." "You won't," he said. "If you're pregnant, we'll face it together. In the open. No one takes our children. No one takes you." Her breath hitched at the certainty in his tone. She laid her hand over his on her stomach, feeling the warmth of his palm through the cloth. "Tyler," she said softly, "I want us to make something official. Something that's ours alone." He shifted onto his side, facing her fully. "Tell me what that means to you." "A bond mark," she said. "The type my people used before everything fell apart. 2 lines on the wrist, crossed by a third. A mark that says we share our days and our burdens. Not marriage. Not property. Choice." He took her wrist in his hand, turning it gently. "Here." She nodded. "And on you too." He studied her face as if measuring the weight of her request. "If we do this, it's not temporary for me. It's not temporary for me either." The storm outside eased slightly, leaving only the low hum of rain. Tyler raised her wrist higher, brushing his lips over the skin once, sealing something unspoken between them. "Then we'll mark it in the morning. Not hidden, not secret." Sarala leaned in and kissed him again, slower than before, deeper, with a trembling certainty. His arm tightened around her waist, pulling her close enough that the heat of his chest warmed her entire front. Her fingers slid along his jaw, tracing the faint roughness of stubble. When they finally separated, their breaths mingled. She rested her head against his chest. "Sleep with me again tomorrow," she whispered. "I will." And the next day, "Yes." And when the child is born, "Of course." Her eyes closed, her body finally relaxing fully against him. "Then this is home," she said. Tyler pulled the blanket over them, settling his arms securely around her. "It always was. You just needed to walk into it." The baby stirred once in the crate, then settled. The room fell quiet except for the steady rhythm of their breathing and the soft pulse of rain against the panels. Sorala curled closer, her hand resting on her lower belly, his covering it. No questions remained. No fears shadowed the space between them. They had chosen each other, and the life growing inside her would be born into a home built by that choice.